Welcome, everyone, to Engage in Trade, solving workforce challenges through local international hiring, featuring our own St. Louis Mosaic Project and True Manufacturing. My name is Susan Spitz, and I'm the Manager of International Business Development here at the World Trade Center, St. Louis. We are just grateful that you're here to join with us today in what promises to be an informative and inspiring conversation. I'm looking forward to it. So just a few housekeeping rules to let you know about. All participants will be muted for the duration of the presentation. However, if you wish to ask questions, please do so using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. There's a chat button and a Q&A button. Please use the Q&A button for your questions. We will do our best to get to those at the end of the presentation. The slides and a recording of this presentation will be available to anybody who has registered within a few days to a week after this webinar is completed. So that's it for the housekeeping. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce to you the Deputy Director of the World Trade Center St. Louis, Ms. Stella Sheehan. Stella has been with the World Trade Center for over 18 years, and she leads our trade team and is serving as our webmaster today. Stella also heads up our Executive Certificate in International Trade online export training. She oversees our 16 sister cities, and she's the executive producer of our signature event, Growing Global. Born and raised in Ireland, Stella has lived, worked, and studied extensively in international markets, including Belgium, France, Italy, and the UK. She holds a BA in French and Italian from the National University of Ireland at Galway and an MA in Applied Languages for Business from the University of Ulster at Coleraine in Northern Ireland. And she's a graduate here of Leadership St. Louis and serves on the Missouri District Export Council. She works very closely with our executive director, Tim Nowak, who is in the audience today. Shout out to you, Tim. And Stella will now give us an overview of World Trade Center's work and introduce our speakers. So over to you, Stella.
Thank you so much, Susan, for that very gracious introduction. And thanks to all of you for joining us this morning for this very timely topic back again in the news this week, and certainly one that will be top of mind for many employers as they plan for the new year and 2026. And being an immigrant myself, this is certainly a topic that is very near and dear to my own heart. I'm also thrilled to have the opportunity to showcase one of our own initiatives, the St. Louis Mosaic Project, and one of their very important partners, True Manufacturing. As Susan mentioned, I lead the trade side of the house, and we like to say at the World Trade Center that we have three main pillars: people, trade, and investment, the three key equal ingredients which make up a global city. The people side consists of our 16 sister cities, and perhaps our most well-known initiative, the St. Louis Mosaic Project, which we're highlighting today, and that is headed up by my colleague Suzanne Sierra, and you'll hear from Suzanne here shortly, which is an initiative to attract foreign-born to the region and assist them by way of programming and networking once they get here. The trade side provides companies with the tools they need to trade internationally by way of counseling, referrals to our federal and state partners, and organizing educational events like the one you're attending today. Last but by no means least, our foreign direct investment, or FDI pillar, led by my colleague Sean Mullins, assists companies around the globe who are simultaneously assisting foreign companies who have already chosen St. Louis and wish to expand and continue to invest here. And now to the introduction of our speakers. Suzanne Sierra became the executive director of the St. Louis Mosaic Project in March of 2025, succeeding the founding director, Betsy Cohen. She previously served as assistant director, where she led university partnerships, the Mosaic Ambassador Company program, and launched STL Parati and the International Student Summer Internship Challenge, with top talent working with regional companies. She works with the International Mentoring Program and the International Spouses Group. Previous roles have included leading her own consulting firm, as well as positions in public relations and account management with Anheuser-Busch and Fleischmann-Hillard. She is on the board of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and St. Louis County's 2050 Steering Committee, and collaborates closely with the Office of New Americans at City Hall. Suzanne holds a Bachelor of Arts in Journalism from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and is a graduate of Focus St. Louis. And Katie Anderson, PHR, has been with True Manufacturing since 2010 and is currently the Assistant Director of Human Resources. In this role, she has been deeply involved with the hiring, onboarding, and training of both native born and foreign born employees and has helped to devise adaptations to their facilities in order to maintain a productive and empowered workforce. Katie holds a bachelor's degree in communication from Central Methodist University in Fayette, Missouri, and holds professional in human resources and adult mental health first aid certifications. Over to you, Suzanne.
Thank you, Stella. It's great to be here. I'm going to pull up my slides here and get started. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on the webinar. I know you always bring some really timely topics, and I certainly feel like this is one of those as well. So, just a little bit of context before I start my conversation with Katie about who Mosaic is and how we fit into the landscape of workforce and the international community that is growing here. The St. Louis Mosaic Project is an initiative of the World Trade Center, as was said earlier, and we're all under the umbrella of the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership. So everything that we do, every division is focused on strengthening the St. Louis region in one way, shape, or another. And our specific focus, Mosaic specific focus, is on attracting and retaining the foreign-born in the region. And we were started in 2012 because at the time, back in the 80s, for those of you who grew up here, you may remember that St. Louis was quite the bustling major metropolitan area. And we had a very robust downtown, lots of headquarters here, large population. And over time, that has continued to dwindle. We have fallen from the 10th largest metro in the 80s to 24, around 23 now. And so there were civic leaders that were watching this trend and said, we really need to try to fix this or reverse this decline. And so there was a study that was funded by the Kemper Foundation to look at 12 peer cities around the region, cities that are similar in size to St. Louis, to see what did they have that was fueling their economy that St. Louis was missing, and it was immigration. So for a city the size of St. Louis, we really should have much higher immigration. Ours is less than 5% compared to a national average of about 14. And when we look at cities like Chicago and even Detroit and other cities like Nashville, they have a lot higher immigration. And of course, they're larger metros. So when we were established in 2012, we set a very ambitious goal, which was to transform St. Louis into the fastest growing major metro for immigration by the year 2025. And the good news is that through a lot of collaboration with the business community, other economic development partners in the region, the universities, community groups, the region did see some really amazing growth. You can see the trend line here on the chart when we started in 2012. And in between 2022 and 2023, we actually ranked number one for foreign-born growth among the top 30 metros. So that was really amazing news. And again, it's not a victory that Mosaic claims as its own. It's certainly something that is the result of everyone working together to be welcoming and really extend a hand to the international community that comes here. And when we talk about St. Louis's international community, we're talking about people from all over the world. And the three countries that have the highest representation are India, followed closely by Mexico, and then individuals from China. So our mission continues to be to maintain St. Louis as a top destination for foreign-born growth by fostering a welcoming region. And how do we do that? We are a very small team of two people. We are not immigration attorneys. We don't get involved in helping people obtain status. What we do is we really work as a sort of a marketer and a connector in the region to both attract and, just as importantly, retain global talent, because we know that that's what's going to continue to drive our population and economic growth. And we do that by being a connector for foreign-born individuals who are here. They have their work authorization. They are looking for meaningful work. Many of them have degrees and experience in their home countries, and they come here and they don't really know who does what they did. And that's what we do, is we make those warm introductions to companies and to other networks. And really, it takes a cross-sector collaboration, as I said, to make the entire region welcoming and to really build a very strong infrastructure to support that retention. And so we're very unique in the region in that we, again, are housed within an economic development entity. And, so we have the fortune to be connected to a lot of the business community. And again, working in collaboration with Greater St. Louis Inc. and the Regional Business Council and the ethnic chambers, who all, in one way or another, they represent companies that have perhaps shortages and may not know that there's this talent pool, international talent pool, as I say, to connect to. And so that's what we do, is we're that connector. And then a large part of what we do is really trying to shape the narrative about the wonderful contributions that immigrants make to the region. And we do that through presentations like this and media outreach and sharing success stories. And you can find a lot of that on our website. And so when I talk about the international community here, and when I talk about global talent, that includes several different buckets, if you will. So we have companies that are bringing international talent from around the world to work here. And those individuals who are transferred bring spouses who often also have work authorization. We have thousands of international students who are pursuing advanced degrees and undergraduate degrees at our very wonderful universities. We have entrepreneurs through Arch grants and other entrepreneurs who find themselves coming to St. Louis because it's a great place to start a business. And then, of course, we have the refugees who have been resettled in St. Louis through the International Institute, which is our region's resettlement agency, separate from Mosaic. And then we have what we call secondary migration. So those are refugees or immigrants that live in other U.S. cities. And hopefully they're hearing about how wonderful St. Louis is to live and work and play. And they come here and they're attracted by that. And perhaps they have family here who have said to them, this is a great place to live. So that is who comprises our international community. And I want to say that the way that we work, again, is very much as connectors. I like to explain what we do in kind of a simple way, I hope, for people to understand that we're a little bit of a mashup between a dating app, a chamber of commerce, and a traditional welcome wagon, who literally, are that welcoming source. We're kind of a go-to source for newcomers who aren't really sure where to go for resources. And then we make that connection. And so today's conversation matters because of where we find ourselves, right? We know that there are labor shortages and that our employers face ongoing challenges filling jobs. Meanwhile, as you may have heard in the news, our native population is stagnant or continues to decline, and it is also an aging population. And yet we see that the growth continues to come from the immigrant population, the foreign-born population. And so that, again, that's the component of the population that is growing, and they bring really diverse skills and perspectives and job experience. And so I'm really excited to have a conversation with Katie Anderson from True Manufacturing, because they are one company of several in the region, but their story about hiring refugees and how that has really transformed their workplace and how the return on that just continues to be seen and felt in their bottom line and just within their culture is really, really wonderful. And of course, it starts with committed leadership. And then here's a picture of just a few of the refugees, as well as some of the true staff who made this possible. And so I want to now invite Katie on to join me in this conversation, and we're just going to talk about, how they did this, why was it important, etc. So, hi, Katie.
Hi, how are
See
ya?
you. Good.
Thanks for having me.
So let's just why don't we set the tone and tell us a little bit about kind of the challenges that led True to consider hiring refugees. And I want to go back and just say that Mosaic has a program called Ambassador Companies. And what that means is essentially companies that align with Mosaic's mission to be welcoming and to do what they can within the purview and scope of their work to be welcoming to foreign born. And so that is how I believe our relationship started, was that True became an ambassador company.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
pick it up from there and tell us
Yeah, I
what.
was actually back. I was just reaching out to some of my team back in May of 23, became one of the ambassadors and had some of our first hires come through the International Institute here at True. And actually, our owner, Steve Trulask, was out in the factory and was met one. We hand out turkeys at Christmas time, and met one of our international hires, and just how positive the team member was, and thankful for the opportunity that Steve said, I want to see this continue to grow. So since then, we actually now have 37 active hires through the International Institute. But like you said earlier in the presentation, the word spreads, friends, families, just referrals, word out on the street. So we have 103 other non-English speaking individuals here at True for like a total of 140. And we're a production facility out of O'Fallon, Missouri, build commercial, residential refrigeration units, but we have them on all shifts. So really our operations run days, nights, weekends. We have facilities in O'Fallon, Bowling Green, Pacific, and Mexico, Missouri. And the word has spread so much that we actually have non-English refugees and other individuals working in all areas of the company out in the factory, which has been great.
Yeah, I love that. I love that story. So how did Steve Trulask, the owner, how did his, you know, I guess talk about, like, was he the one that came forward and said, we need to do this? Was it also obviously to fill maybe some workforce challenges that you were having? Can you talk a little bit about
Yeah.
literally the genesis of saying, oh, gee, and then let's think about the International Institute and the refugees that are here? Like, how was
Yeah.
that connection made?
Yeah, Steve, I believe knew some folks on a board over at International Institute, and shared that, this is an untapped market that we haven't worked with yet. And he said, I think that this is definitely something that we should tap into and work through, and started smaller numbers. Let's work through it, because obviously having non-English speaking individuals is more difficult when it comes to training out on the floor with parts and ways you're building the refrigerator, things like that. But we've worked through those issues and done different accommodations, pictures. We also have Buslingo, which is a translation device that has been really great, that we've purchased, and many are admins on the site to be able to utilize.
So, yeah, I think about when, you started, and I think for any company, any organization that is saying, okay, we're going to start hiring people that don't, they're not native English speakers. How was that, I guess, how was that uh, communicated internally? Was there pushback? And share the story, because I just love the story about how nimble you all were and how committed you were to making this work, with the story about the call that HR got saying, oh, these folks are not they're not passing the physical therapy test. And it was like, why? And you on a dime made a change.
Yeah.
And I love that example of, okay, this is commitment. We're going to just, let's do something different.
Yeah. I think first it really starts with our existing team members and how open they would be. It was communicated to our team like this is one of our missions as far as diversity inclusion, and we're gonna make it work. But we actually had many bilingual team members come forward and say, I will help you with anything that you need, whether it come to an annual update or an annual evaluation or anything. We have a list of bilingual team members that will go out to the factory and help facilitate a conversation, whether that be with somebody in leadership or somebody from my department, human resources, just to help facilitate that conversation. But yeah, you're right, even down to the physical. So we give the job offer, they go over to Concentra for their physical, and we were having like a lag in time or we can't communicate. But we wound up just creating the physical in their native language, and also having translators go with them as needed. And we continue to do that as doctor appointments come up or annual update trainings. We'll get a translator in the room to be able to help those folks.
That's really cool. How many different languages are spoken now? And I remember you telling me that this also resulted in sort of an aha within your own existing employee base, that people that had worked there for a while spoke different languages that you all weren't aware of. So it was just such a win-win in so many ways. But
Yeah. Of the non-English speaking, so not even our bilingual folks included, we have 10 languages that are spoken here at True. I wrote them down because I always think it's kind of fun to just show the variety, but we have Ukrainian, Kinyarwandan, Arabic, Dari, Pashto, Farsi, Russian, Rwandan, Bosnian, and Spanish.
That is so cool. And so, yes, thankfully, because of a lot of advanced technology, I mean, I'm not going to say that not, that not having maybe an interpreter on hand is not important, but it's amazing how well you can communicate with some of these AI tools, and platforms. And so talk a little bit about the business benefits that you guys have observed now. Oh, it's been 2 years and
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, obviously stability, just being able to say we have 140 non-English speaking team members, just the thankfulness for the opportunity, but they're just such hard workers where our existing team members appreciate that, and that, they're not having to train new folks all of the time. There's that stability and retention that comes with hiring these folks. I think bringing the culture to the buildings is always great. I remember, I think it was last Christmas, and we'll be doing it again next year, but one of my plant managers out in the factory called me so excited because they had a team lunch and everybody brought something, but just the different variety of food from the different countries, and seeing people sitting side by side, some not even able to speak to each other, but side by side as a team together, enjoying each other's food and each other's company. He was like, it was just the coolest thing that he's ever seen when working here. And we're excited to see that, continue throughout the years. And we have our big potlucks and things next week too. So that'll continue.
That's awesome. What did you underestimate early on, do you think?
I think a lot of it was like training. Training was always difficult because obviously there's work orders and job descriptions and things they need to do out on the floor. And it's so technology based, and they need to know the parts of the refrigerator. And there's things that don't necessarily translate to their language. But that at time, you can point, you can take pictures, and you can kind of show. So that's gotten better. I would say another challenge is things like taxes, direct deposits. We've had some folks who have needed to go on, leave of absences. So learning things about FMLA, that has been challenging specifically for my team too, because those are things that are completely foreign to these individuals. They don't know about FMLA and what those steps are and taxes in the area. But my team, we've actually, when we do have orientations for the new hires, we've pulled these non-English speaking out and we have individual orientations for them. And my payroll team goes into those and spends as much time as needed to explain those types of things. Also added a bilingual human resources representative to my HR team. His name is Kabir, and he's from Afghanistan, and he'll be celebrating 1 year in the United States coming up next week. But he helps us a lot with the translation of the conversations with the team members as well.
Mm-hmm. So I want to talk a little bit about sort of the logistics of hiring folks that have a different status. They're not citizens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So talk a little bit about that. How did the International Institute help you with that? And we're talking about primarily refugees who, come to this country, they're resettled, they have to start working within 90 days of being here, and they have work authorization. So paperwork issues, do you have internal legal counsel that managed immigration before, or what was that like?
Our legal team does help out when like questions or situations arise, but other than that, it's really just my recruiting team. We rely heavily on Colton. He's great over at the International Institute. Whenever there's any issues with documentation maybe expiring or things like that. But yeah, as long as they have active work authorizations, we're able to process them and work through those.
That's great. And then talk a little bit about you talked about some of the wonderful cultural benefits of sharing different customs and food and all of that. And then I know that you also needed to make some additional accommodations for uh, prayer and things like that. So talk about that. And then how were your, kind of, I guess your existing core base of employees, was there any pushback? Did you, just because the melding of the multiple cultures could sometimes make companies think this isn't going to work, but you guys have really, really made it work so well.
Yeah. Right off the bat, off the top of my head, some of the different accommodations that we've made is, we have occasionally have overtime on Fridays, and we learn, that's individuals' Sabbath. So we get creative on how they can make that time up throughout the week when it's not their Sabbath, so that way they can observe it. We had some of our team members that we learned were washing their feet in the bathroom before their designated prayer times. And we said, no, we're not going to do that. So we made them some feet washing stations out in the factory and prayer areas. So that way they had a space for themselves to where they can have that time. What else have we done? Oh, we've done like I said, our annual update training. Normally it's an online training, but we've had all of our bilingual team members come forward and they have a classroom type setting. And we'll do those trainings with the team members. So that way they don't have to go through the online version.
Yeah, I think the other wonderful outcome is when you share how a lot of your initial hires have been promoted. So talk a little bit about sort of those career paths as well.
Yeah, for sure. So one of my favorite stories, is Madi. So Madi is an international hire, one of our first ones. And Madi started out in the factory. And then we learned that he had an experience in media design. So then we started doing a split shift type situation where he did half of his work week in the factory, half of it with our media design team. And eventually he did transfer into our office, and now he works full time with the media design, does a lot of traveling for our marketing team. But it's not often. I mean, we see him quite often up here because he helps facilitate our Dari and Pashto orientation. So he's somebody you see here a lot in the department. We've had other folks that have transitioned into incentivized machine operator positions. We also have some that are in our material handling group, and then also some that have transitioned into our quality team.
And so I just want to really kind of drill down to that for a minute because when you first hired, I mean, did you know the people's backgrounds per se, or did you have, was it more like we have these entry-level jobs and we have talent that needs jobs, so we're going to start there, and then did the skills and how, just talk about the evolution of that a little bit.
Yeah, so Monty was very vocal about his experience when he was hired, but typically what we're doing is we're hiring for the entry level factory and working with Colton and the International Institute. But what we do is we have like a weekly communication meeting out in the factory floor that we have now translated into all of these different languages as well, where we post all of our different opportunities, whether they be office transitions or going into incentivized roles out in the factory. So those individuals did put their name in, share their interests. Some of them even interviewed using translation devices to interview, and then were selected and then move into the roles.
That's awesome. And I know that another wonderful return on this is that it's really created a very kind of organic and natural pipeline for referrals, right?
Yes.
Because, I mean, again, we all know that it's finding a job or looking for a job. A lot of it is who you know and knowing someone, and this is no different.
Yeah,
Because you
totally.
said you started with a few hires from the Institute, I think 30, but now you have over 100, right?
Yeah, yeah. So we have like the 37 through the International Institute and then 103. So a little bit after our first couple hiring groups through the International Institute, we had one of our normal hiring events. And hiring events, we have them here and there. They're usually for our factory production level, entry level positions. Usually bring in maybe 50 people, and we had 150 show up in many different languages. So the word, and they said, I heard from this person or that person or Madi. Madi has lots of referrals, but they said, I heard about that. So that's instantly like just watching my team work through even that hiring event with 150 people and tapping our Spanish speaking bilingual folks. I called Noor over from IT, who's Arabic speaking, to come do a few Arabic interviews. Like it was just a melting pot of a hiring event. And I was so proud of my team for working through that. Madi came over and started doing interviews in Dari and Pashto for us as well.
Yeah. So, what about how all of this has improved your operations? Have you learned to do things differently as a result of something that one of your new employees brought to your attention, or because of how they thought or their experience?
Yeah, I would say, we're always learning through the process, always things that we can do better. But yeah, I think we've learned a lot along the way and always are just constantly tweaking. Like most recent,
Mhm.
Kabir being added to my HR group to be able to help support our Dari Pashto with all of those questions. He's excited because we're actually going to have during work English classes that he's going to have for our Dari and Pashto speaking team members, where he can focus on some of the true knowledge when it comes to work orders, job descriptions, things like more true specific, but being able to carve time out of the workday for them to be able to help learn English has been great. I think it's helped us too to be more open, because we have folks who even speak Bosnian from years ago. They've been with True for 20 years, and we've been able
Mhm.
to help them more than we've ever been able to help them in the past. They're joining those communication meeting notes. They're joining those annual update classroom setting trainings. So we're being able to help them even more as well.
That's awesome. Is there anything I want to just I could talk to you forever and just act like this is just you and me here, but I do want to open it up. I know we might have a couple of questions, but is there anything, again, looking back, because what do they say? Hindsight is 2020. But anything you would have, for people listening, and I hope there are a lot of companies saying, this is great, we want to do this too. But what would you have perhaps done differently from the start, or a real, pain point that you learned through, that you learned, about, or you know what I'm
Yeah, I
saying?
feel like my team, they've been really adaptive through all of it. My leadership, there was hesitation.
Sure.
And then now you have them where they're saying, give me more. I want more in my building. So I wish we would have, looking back at it, I would have maybe be more proactive. I would maybe have those physicals already in those languages.
Mhm.
Open enrollment. We rolled out our open enrollment guide this year. I feel like we were in a good spot because we had our open enrollment packet translated into everybody's individual languages, where when the relationship was first starting, it was working through it as it went, but it was unknown. So
Sure.
we didn't
Sure.
really know what to expect and what we would need to work through. But like I said, maybe that would be something. But other than that, it's just been very fluid and everybody's just worked through any challenges that have come up.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. Is just kind of setting aside the idea that you think you know how something is going to go and being, just as you have said, and as I know that you've just been very, I always use the word nimble and flexible and ready to kind of, I know it's not turning on a dime because it takes a lot, but just to accommodate and adapt has been really awesome. And I know we're talking with you specifically about refugees. I do want to emphasize to the audience that again, we have a lot of folks with varying skill sets here that are from other countries. And Katie, you and I have talked about,
Mhm.
we have folks who have advanced degrees. Where they might have a role with True or other companies, but just for everyone to realize that, yes, if you've got entry level jobs, there are folks who absolutely will want to take that. But if you have more specialized roles, we have so many qualified international folks who, we have certainly witnessed, and we know others have, that they come in and they just bring this amazing perspective. And so before we open it up, is there, for questions, is there anything else I haven't asked you about or that you want to kind of reemphasize or
No,
put a,
I think we've covered a lot of it. I just said, I think there was some hesitation, but with any partnership, you might always see that. But
sure.
through the years, it's been so great, and look forward to having it continue to be successful and giving people opportunities. And like you just said, we're open to office positions, higher level positions. And so you and I are in contact. Like if there's ever a position open and you have a candidate, you can always shoot me that name.
Yeah.
And as far as other employers, I'm happy to even meet with them on a smaller scale level, and truly talk through like what we can do and what we can share to help make similar partnerships successful.
Yeah, that's great. And really that's how we all work, right? We're all connectors
Mhm.
so well, thank you so much for the conversation and
Of
for
course.
sharing the true experience. And gosh, I'm looking forward to seeing how it all continues to evolve for you.
Yeah, I think it's great. We definitely have some questions. I think you've sort of touched on some of them, but a great presentation, and appreciate Katie, especially appreciate your willingness to talk with other employers to
Of
kind of help
course.
get them over the
Yeah.
hump.
Mhm.
Um, I'm going to be selfish and ask a question myself before I get to some of the other questions, which is um, the sort of the costs of all that adaptation, extra HR time, and some of the pulling people off the line, and that I assume that trade-off still comes out as a positive in the end
Yeah,
when.
still comes out in a positive. We have individuals that are out on the factory floor that we've moved into what we call here at True Floaters, so it doesn't count towards production. And we actually give them a little bit of an extra incentive to be that translator. But yeah, like I said, it's really been our bilingual team members who translated the open enrollment, so it hasn't been a large
Great.
cost to True. It's more time,
Mhm.
but in the end, it's totally worth it.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Okay. So one person in particular has asked a number of great questions. So I'm just going to kind of go through them. The first one, you've sort of just hit on it, which is what untapped talent pools exist among immigrants that are currently in St. Louis. So I don't know if there's any other, in addition to what you've already stated, Suzanne, that you want to.
Yeah, I'm happy to repeat because repetition is key. But we've got thousands of international students, and again, the thing about international students that I want to really emphasize that companies may not realize is that international students who graduate are able to remain on their student visas for 1 to 3 years, meaning that the company does not need to sponsor them. They stay on their F1 student visa because what they're working within something called optional practical training, OPT. And if they have a STEM degree, and the category for STEM is quite broad, they can work for a company for up to 3 years. So that is one talent pool. And then again, refugees. And then we have oh my gosh, I just blanked. International students. Oh, and then we have a lot of individuals here who have come over with their uh, spouse. We call them trailing spouses, where the spouse was transferred, but they also have work authorization and just a variety of different backgrounds. So we serve as sort of the one stop to make those connection points. It's not that um, you know. Uh, my point is there are quite a few pools of talent here, and
And
we
you don't have to jump through that H-1B visa hoop
no,
necessarily.
correct. That's the point, is that we work with people that already have their work authorization. So a company is not needing to get their status to do all that. So, and of course, the immigration and the paperwork and all of that takes time sometimes, and companies may not understand what all that means. And as I said, we're not immigration attorneys, but we have a slew of experts that we always refer to people. And so we're always happy to do that to make it as seamless
Great.
as possible.
Okay, so that actually transitions right into the next question, which another person also asked, is essentially a smaller organization. Is it easier for a larger organization to do this? And obviously, if you've got an HR department, that's going to make a big difference. But how would you address that? I don't know which of you would want to address that, but a small business, how can they
Oh my gosh.
practically
I
speak?
you know, I would almost say, I mean, every situation is different, obviously, but I almost feel like the small to mid-sized companies may be able to do it easier because there aren't so many layers, perhaps, of decision making. And
Yeah,
again,
and they have
small
to have
com
leadership on board, right?
correct. And that's what I love about True. And again, I'm not saying that True's the only company doing this. There are several others, but it really does have to start from the top. You have to have that buy-in, because then it trickles down, and then that's a seeded culture and a pillar, right, for your hiring,
Mhm.
and it permeates everything that you do. But what I was going to say is that there are a couple of organizations here and experts that would be happy to work with that small to mid-sized company to make it happen. So, I just don't want I don't ever want a company or an organization to feel like it's too daunting to do. And again, Katie and True are perfect examples of really making it work. And I'm sure it wasn't easy, but certainly worth it. Again, the return on that investment in time and people. This is what we're talking about, is an investment in your people. And
Mhm.
now you have these committed employees, and it just sounds like a great place to work. So
Yeah.
we're happy to help other companies achieve
I was
that.
gonna, we touched on it briefly earlier, but AI and all of the different tools in place, it really does make communicating with these individuals so much easier than what you think it's going to be. And honestly, they use those tools all day, every day
Already.
in their
Of
Yeah.
everyday
course.
life. Um,
Well, yes.
so, but I mean, Teams can translate your conversation. There's a Google app, Google Translate app that you can get where you hover over a document and it'll translate it into their language. So, and then they can read it, so there's just so many tools in place that make that communication so much easier than what people really think it's going to be.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. So I don't know if there's a yes answer to this one, but are there incentives incentives maybe no, but resources available for employers who want to diversify their workforce? So I think actually you have talked about resources already, but I don't know if there's
Right.
any incentives, especially in the given administration, town,
Yeah.
the environment, not necessarily looking at this as
Yeah.
positively as we are.
Um, other than an incentive for a loyal workforce, I don't
Right,
know.
because I mean, obviously it's so hard to keep talent once you
Correct.
hire them, and it's a high cost if there's a lot of turnover. So that seems like a huge benefit. Yeah.
Right, right.
Okay.
We were in an talk in a conversation the other day, somewhat related, but somebody made the point, which is, really true that I think those of us, maybe for people who haven't necessarily traveled or spent a lot of time with people from other countries and especially refugees, that the the grit and the resilience to
Mm,
to find work. I mean, for a lot of immigrants coming here, they're starting completely over. And that is
mhm.
just a compelling, when I think about that, my parents were immigrants from Colombia, South America. They came here and did the same thing. And I think about, and they didn't speak English. And I think about how there was a woman who was their, always love to say, their one person Mosaic Project, and how she helped them and they struggled, but they made it, they made it. And so, um, just my point is immigrants in the international community, they have such drive to
Yeah.
find that meaningful work. People often ask me, what do immigrants want when they come here? What would you want if you moved to a different country and you had to put food on the table and you had to pay for your rent or your home or your car, whatever it is? You would want respect, you would want dignity, you would want to find meaningful work at a place that appreciated you. So,
Yeah.
it's not that complicated, is what I want
Yeah.
to tell people.
Yeah, especially as you say, with all of these already work authorized folks.
Correct,
To
correct.
me, that seems like the biggest misconception.
Right, right,
That you're
right.
having to start from scratch and that there's not a lot of support. So I really I was so excited about this topic in general. So
Oh,
um, another question is just, and you've touched on this a little bit, but how can media and community organizations collaborate with employers and with Mosaic to amplify success stories of immigrant talent?
I love that question.
Yeah.
Just to tell more of them. So again, we're a two-person team, and as I mentioned when I opened, a big part of what we do is to try to change that narrative. And so we're always looking for ways to tell that story. And it's not necessarily that I want to be the person doing it, but we have so many examples that we can share with you. So, one of the things we tell, um, well, a couple things. So on our website, we have a news section, and one of our metrics every year is actually to publish at least 100 stories of the positive news and contributions that all immigrants are making in the region. Anytime there's an award, we have so many St. Louis Business Journal 30 under 30 or Women of Achievement or Focus What's Right with the Region. We're always looking for examples of how our foreign-born population can be nominated for those awards. And so the more that we all are talking about sharing the stories, because the region, people, the broader region need to be hearing, reading, and seeing people in success. And we have, again, we have so many great stories. So,
Wouldn't it be cool to have a feature just on foreign-born
yes,
professionals and how they're contributing to the organization, to the
yes,
region?
yes, yes. And,
That would be so cool.
and companies themselves can do, they all have internal communications. Highlight your
Mhm.
foreign-born folks. Share the story of how they came to St. Louis. Share the story of how they found the work and how they feel about it, because this is about belonging. And we toss around the word welcoming, and it is important. That's what we're doing. We're welcoming people to the region, but it's not just hi, how are you? It's let me help you come in and sit all the way down and become a part of the region. This is an economic imperative, but it's also a moral imperative and a personal imperative. I mean, I
Yeah.
have boys who don't live in the city anymore, and I know that it's because they think we don't have as much diversity as,
Yeah,
as other big cities. But I can
it's
say
a
that we
draw.
do, we have pockets of it, and it's getting
Mhm.
better.
Mhm.
And it behooves all of us to just be a lot more inclusive in our thinking
Yeah.
and our actions.
Well, to that end, we do have a question from a student that has completed a couple of advanced degrees and wants to know, what the best way would be to try to find an opportunity, recommendations for students graduating soon who have their work authorization, what ways should they try to engage and get out there?
Yes. Well, it's interesting. So the number one thing is networking for sure, and you can always reach out to us. We have a program called Professional Connector, and it's a very simple sign up form at no cost where you put your information, then we have a Zoom with you just like this and learn about your background. And then what we do is then make one or two what we call warm introductions. So if the student might have background that True can benefit from. I might be calling Katie and saying, "Hey, I just talked to this person." But really, that's how it works. But we do encourage folks to take advantage of associations, and again, once I know what the person's background and we can direct them a little bit better. But it does really start with that. And one thing that we've learned too is that, again, we know we live in the US and it's a very much, hi, how are you? Look you in the eye, a very assertive culture, which is foreign, no pun intended, but foreign to a lot of the international community who are much more reserved. And
Mhm.
so, so those are the kinds of tips and guidance that we can give people. And then we're very
And you
fortunate.
mentioned, sorry, you mentioned the Regional Business Council. I know, like I have a mentee who's a foreign student from there, and so when you're still a student, I think you can apply. I don't know if they've got an application process or how that works,
Yes, the
but
Regional Business Council does have a mentoring program. And I'm not exactly sure how, but I would say that if you're students, you can talk to the Office of Immigrant Affairs and I'm sorry, the Office of International Student Services, and
at
they
your
can,
stu at your university, yeah.
yeah, or send me a note after and I can connect you to the person there.
Okay. Well, this is great. We've got a lot of questions. We have one left, and we probably only have time for one left. So, and I think this is a good one. What's the best way to get started? Like, what would be the next step? The questioner suggested perhaps an internship. I don't know if that would be,
You
what your
know,
thoughts?
yes, I mean, and that is something we do encourage companies to do. If you've never done this and you want to try out an international employee, limited project work is great, an internship, just project work. Lots of folks who are eager. Again, we have a database of individuals based on their, level of experience and background. So I would say the first step is maybe reach out to me and then I can help redirect as needed. But
Yeah,
it
and
really
we will
depends on the
provide.
needs.
Yeah,
Hmm.
we'll provide the contact info for both of you guys. And you've got a job board on the website as well, right?
We do. We have a job board, and yes, if you're an ambassador company, you can post jobs, any amount of jobs for up to 90 days at no cost. Otherwise, I believe I'll have to let you know what we charge non-ambassador companies. But that
Or you can
becomes
be a
a
World Trade
place.
Center member company, then you could post for without any cost.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, thank you both so much. Very, very, as I said, interesting and informative. And I think you've done a great job of helping other companies to really, realize that that's something that not only they can do, but they ought to strongly consider because it's got such positive payoff for you. So thank you both. And I think we've got another slide coming up as far as our next events. We will have our usual mid to end of January. We've got our global economic outlook coming up. We're still working on the speaker, but the person that I'm speaking with right now is extremely informative. I've heard him speak, so I'm expecting that we will have an exciting presentation for you. And Lord knows there's plenty of things going on in the global economy. So if you're not already on our email list, you can go to our website, which is worldtradecenter-stl.com. And scroll all the way down. You'll be able to add your email address to our mailing list, and you'll be receiving invitations for upcoming events. I don't believe I mentioned this at the outset, but when the webinar is finished, you should see in your browser an opportunity to respond to us and give us an evaluation and any other topic ideas that you'd like to hear us present on that would be helpful for you. And that would be it for all of us today. We wish you a very happy holiday season, and we'll see you in 2026. Thank you.